the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ, or Iglesianicristo.
And good morning, everyone, and welcome to INCRadio, Florida. It's another beautiful day here in the Sunshine State, and of course, today is Saturday, October 5th. It's about 9:30 in the morning here on the East Coast of the United States, which means if you're watching us from there in the Philippines, you're staying up late. Can't tell you how much we appreciate you staying up to watch us this evening for you, this morning for us. And of course, before we proceed on today's topic, because today we've got a really exciting topic that I think relates to so many people that are just graduating, finishing school, looking for career changes, deciding what their first career is going to be. Today, we're going to talk all about what happens after you graduate. Before we do that, I want to go ahead and throw it over to Sister Joy to give us some greetings to all of our lovely fans that are out there joining us today.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning to all of our viewers who are joining us today. We are so delighted to have you with us. Do not forget to participate in our live chat. Shout out to where you are. Don't forget to hashtag, because we want to know which congregation you're from, or if you're just joining us for the first time, you want to know what area you're representing. So really delighted to have you. We have a great topic that we're going to dive into and we're going to discuss today. So really looking forward to this today.
Yes, absolutely, Sister Joy. Thank you. And joining us today, of course, is Sister Charisse up there in Pensacola. Good morning, Sister Charisse. How are you doing? Oh, I think you're muted. I'm thinking maybe your microphone doesn't have its coffee yet. I need to get you some caffeine. All right.
I think we all need a little bit of caffeine.
We all need a little extra. Side, right? We all need a little extra jolt here on your exclusive INCRadio Florida mug. If you are able to join us in the chat, we'll talk to you and tell you how it is that you can get your hands on one of those mugs. But for now, we're going to go ahead and dive right into the topic here. Sister Charisse is working on her microphone because we definitely want her to participate in this conversation, because today's conversation, we're going to go ahead and get started. And Kuyatek, if you could please put us in grid mode, we greatly appreciate that. So this way, we can kind of walk through and talk through all of the various items we're going to discuss today, which is, we're still working on getting that together.
Pulling that up, let me shout out to some of our viewers who've already participated on our chat.
Already?
Yes, already. I love it. We have Brother Ryan DeSena. Good morning and greetings to all the viewers. Brother Adrian Albelgas. Sorry if I didn't say your last name right. And he is such a loyal viewer for us.
Oh, that's our super fan from Las Vegas, Brother Adrian.
There you go. Sister Melka Newcomb, she's here in the home front here of District of Florida in Orlando. She's saying greetings to all the officers, ministers' wives, and children of the Florida district. We have Sister Tere Marie. She says, good morning, Paul, from Kissimmee. She's also here. I love how she says this. She said, happy Saturday, not Saturday, Saturday, because y'all are joining us today. So really
that's awesome. All right. Well, we thank you. We appreciate all of you that are joining us every week on INCRadio Florida. Obviously, this show is all about engaging with our audience because we want these topics to really be something relatable. And I think today's topic is super relatable to many of our audience because many of our audience, especially here in Tampa, we have so many students that come to Tampa to attend the university. And many of them that I talk to, Sister Joyce, Sister Charisse, a lot of them have the same question. They come up to me and they'll ask, finishing school, we're about to graduate, and I'm really, really worried about what are the next steps going to be like. And we're hoping that today we're going to be able to answer a couple of those questions for you through our experiences we've had. We've got a pretty wide variety of career choices amongst our panel here, of course, in different career paths that we've taken. But one of the first things that everybody always asks, right? So you get out of school and you finally have graduated, and now it's time to hunt for that first job. And, for so many people, they start that job hunt early in their educational career, right? They're already looking for jobs. Some people, they just want to
hunt.
Yeah, it's called hunting, right?
So you have to hunt.
It's either that or they're just waiting until they graduate because they're just trying to survive school. Yeah. So, I want to ask, amongst you guys here, and Sister Charisse, I'm not sure if you're able to get back on. Is your mic working?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear
Yes.
that wonderful voice.
Okay.
There you go.
Yay.
So when we talked about the job hunt, did you start looking for your first job? We'll start with you, Sister Joy. Like right after you finished graduation, or were you already looking for a job, or were you already working when you
I
were
actually was
in
already
school?
working for me, but I was a typical college student. I had little jobs here, little jobs there. So I was currently working. And for me, what my struggle was while I was in school, because I was already working, finding the balance of trying to stay focused in the actual studies versus working and saying, "Ooh, but this is already providing me good income." So I was in that category. I was kind of like, I'm already making decent income. Is it necessary for me to go through the job hunt to finish, to complete? And I'll talk more about that when it comes to, my field of study. So that was my struggle while I was a college student.
You know that actually hits a really really important point because when you're in school, right, and depending on whether you went to school because you got a scholarship or whether your parents were paying for it or whether you're paying for it yourself or you're going through student loans, right? Every education is not free, but so there's an investment being made by
Mhm,
someone, and it's so easy when you're a student when you first start working, you get that first job and you get the taste of that first paycheck,
mhm,
right? And we'll talk about that actually a little down the road here.
mhm.
When you start getting money, it's so easy for you to kind of get distracted or derailed from
Yeah.
wanting to stay focused because now all of a sudden I've got an income. I can
Mhm.
buy a better car. I can get better clothes. I
Yeah.
can, and then some get really, really like, um, excited. I can move out. And but all of those things, the burden of those expenses are what are going to prevent you or potentially hinder you from continuing that
Yes.
career path and study. So that's a great thing. What about you, Sister Sharice? Were you looking for your job like right off the bat, or did you already know from day one what you were planning on doing?
Well, career-wise, I always knew since I was a little girl that I wanted to be a nurse. So that was my path that I chose to take. And so I had to figure out along the way, how do I get there? And so with me, um, I applied for scholarships, grants, anything you could think, financial aid. But what it ultimately came down to was I was very blessed with my grandparents are the ones who put me through nursing school. So I was very blessed with that. They paid for everything. So back then, when I was going to nursing school, I actually did the 2 year degree, the community college one,
Hmm.
just so that I could be able to help. They wanted to pay for everything, so I wanted to make sure that I was helping them save costs and all that thing. So I did that, and so thanks to my grandparents, I'm the nurse that I am today. And so, but when I did graduate, I graduated in 2009, and so in 2008, they were giving all of those bonuses for new grad nurses, and
Yeah.
5-figure bonuses at the hospitals. They'll sign you in right away. The year I graduated was when the economy fell, and they no longer were hiring new grad nurses. They no longer were giving bonuses. So that was my struggle, and the struggle for my graduating nurse class was to all go out and find jobs. Because in nursing school, you're told you need to get a job in a hospital. That's where you get the most experience. But it was unfortunate for us that no one was hiring new graduate nurses in the hospitals anymore. They wanted nurses with experience, at least one or two. And so that was quite a difficult feat for myself and my fellow graduates who graduated with us. So I was fortunate enough that I was able to get a job in a family practice. So that's where I started my nurse path, was in a family practice with my other nurse friends. They all had jobs there already, so they were able to get me in. And so I started my way small. But for me, I feel like that was the best thing, because from there I was able to experience what it meant, and I learned how to cultivate a passionate relationship with my patients that I would see, often all the time. So for me, I took that as a great experience because I was able to connect with them in such a way versus working in a hospital, you only see them for a few shifts and then they're gone. Me, I was seeing, I had my own set of, patients I was able to see, for shots, allergy shots, flu shots. And so I was able to make connections with them. And that's what I really loved about what I did and what I continue to do now. So
There's a lot of continuity when you're doing that,
hmm
right? So
hmm
that's terrific. That's a great story. Well, when we're talking about, like, you mentioned you were going to be a nurse from the beginning, right? And so you took the 2-year path, which is great. I think that is solid advice, because deciding on a career is such a challenge for so many
hmm
people, right? You start college, and I've been asked this actually by some of the youth members at our church numerous times. Is like when they go in and they stress about picking a major before they even get started with school, right? Because they tell you got to choose a major, so this way you can already have your core curriculum decided. Those first 2 years of school, it doesn't matter what your major is, whether it's finance, whether it's nursing, whether it's engineering. The same core classes for those first 2 years are essentially lined up very similarly. But they put so much stress on trying to figure out what that major is. And then all of a sudden, when they graduate, I don't know if you have any friends. I had friends who bounced majors around, like senior year. I thought they were never going to graduate. They changed majors like 6 times. And
Yeah,
I'm thinking,
I
are
feel
you just
so
trying to
seen
avoid
right now.
graduation?
You're like, can you just decide what? They're like, it's the rest of my life. I
It
don't
is
know what.
not. That's the whole thing.
No.
It's not,
Yeah.
because,
Y'all, I
you
have
know,
something to say. I was one of those friends.
were you the 6 major
I
jumper?
was, I was. My mom would we would have this frequent conversation. My mom's like, please just finish anything. I mean, it could have been like, I mean, just
Just
blood
take
random,
agriculture,
whatever.
Anak.
I know. I changed my major. I mean, I think I should have a PhD in changing majors.
But it's but that's the thing, is you don't have to feel like when you choose your major that locks you in for the rest of your life. Case in point,
Exactly.
yours truly. My degree is in microbiology. And as we all, if you know me, I'm putting it to great use right now. Because I was a pre-med student, right? I was a pre-med student. I became a nurse because, like Sister Charisse, right? I didn't want to make the full 13-year investment in medical school. So I decided I'm going to do nursing first to see if I could even tolerate working with patients. And so I went with nursing. It was a shorter path, did it for a little while, loved it, but realized that it wasn't for me. And then now, I'm in the technology industry. So, your graduation and your major
Yeah.
doesn't have to necessarily define what your career path is going to be for the rest of your life. And I think that students put
Great
so
advice.
much pressure on themselves, that and whether it's internally or externally from parents and others in the house that may be saying, no, this is what you've got to do. And so it's important that you don't feel like those decisions that you make are defining moments for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. And I
And
have
that
to
you
say this too. I totally agree with you because I felt that pressure. I'm like, okay, not only did I try to
well, you
write
changed
out,
major 6 times. So,
well, that's the major. Let's not talk about the minor. I'm like, okay, well, let's see. I have to also decide on the minor too, right? So, okay, what relates to that?
so
Yeah.
we talked about career expectations and reality. So we know now that you don't have to, your career, it's okay for you to kind of take a career path and then get a job. That's, to me, that's the advice that I would give them, is if you think that that's a career you want to take, then take an entry level position in that job and
Yeah.
watch the people in the role that you want to be in and see,
hmm
is that really what you want to do? So
Yeah.
that way, and if you feel like it's not, it's okay. It's okay to
Yep.
pull back and say, you know what, maybe this is the right industry, but maybe it's not the right job. Or maybe
Yep.
this isn't even the right industry for me.
Hmm.
You need to give yourself that opportunity to see it, because I'll tell you right now, everything you learn in your books isn't exactly what's going to happen.
Yes.
It'd be the same experience when you actually go out there and you're
Mhm.
doing the work, right?
Mhm.
Exactly. I think, especially for me, like it says right there, career expectations. In your mind, you think, I'm going to graduate as a nurse. What do you think of nurses? They work in hospitals. My reality was they weren't hiring. So I had to do family. So that was my expectation versus my reality was I was a nurse, but not in a hospital like I had thought. I had to work my way to get there. And once I was there, I, did my beat in the hospital patient care setting, and I thought, this is not where I want to be in nursing, just not in a hospital setting. So I figured my way, and now I
And found a
love
different
my job.
path to be able to do it,
Yes.
right? So,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that that's true for so many students that they find themselves. And if that happens, it's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
not like you failed. It's not as if you didn't accomplish what you were expecting to accomplish. It's because the accomplishment that you were expecting is different than the reality that you experienced.
Yeah.
So you need to kind of keep an open mind to that. So let's talk about the next item that we've got here, which is um, when you graduate, personal finance and independence. Oh, oh man, what a struggle. Okay, so
You all hear the laugh behind it all.
everyone, every student right now is going, yes, because when you're going to school, right, you have a fixed budget. Your parents may be helping you with it, or your grandparents, or someone who's kind of helping you to be able to get through school financially. But maybe students haven't learned yet how to make a budget, how to create a savings account. Like, what's that? How not to spend all of the money that you got from your student loan on things not related to being a student. Like, that's never happened, right? And then as far as independence, balancing your work, your life, and for those of us in the Church of Christ, church duties, church responsibilities, because that's such a big part of our lives. It's such a big part of what defines us. And more importantly, we're going to talk about in a few minutes, it's such an important part of what grounds us is our church duties and our church life. But so when you were in school, Sister Charisse, were you home, or did you go away for school?
I was at home. I did community college, so I was at home. But I had to halfway through. I wasn't quite in the nursing program yet. Back then, I was like, let me just get all my prerequisites out of the way, and did all my classes there. And then my parents ended up moving while I was still in community college. So I ended up moving with them, took a semester off, and finished my courses. And then from there, I was able to apply and get into the nursing program in Virginia in a different college. So I stayed at home. I never ventured off and did the whole.
So you were at home. Did you work and during the
I
time when
did.
you were in school? So you already had a
did.
job. So you got that
I
taste
did
of money, right?
the hostess, and I did what was a waitress, and at a southern restaurant. So yes, I did all of that stuff, working and trying to do school at the same
Did
time.
you already understand the importance of establishing a budget for yourself, or were you kind of oh, you were? Oh man,
Yeah.
there's always one responsible one in the group, right, Sister Joy?
Oh my goodness, I totally was not at the time, but that's the reason why I am what I am. I try to tell my kids, I'm like, no, this is the way that we got to do this. But yeah,
I
life
think
gives you all these lessons for sure.
what's the toughest part about learning how to be able to build your own like paying your own bills, right? Because when you do move out on your own, when you graduate, you got rent, you
Yep.
got to budget for your
Gas,
utilities
car
if they're not
insurance,
included, right? Yeah,
cell phone
have a
bills.
car. Maybe you have a car payment or you don't, but those cars don't run themselves.
Mhm.
So you got to be able to budget for gas and maintenance, especially because I think some of the most unexpected expenses are when you need new tires.
Yeah, or you take it
Like,
for
oh,
an
you
oil
better
change, and
replace
they say,
those.
yeah, they're like, oh, you need new brake pads, by the way. Wait, what? What are brake pads? I don't know. Dad, what are brake pads? I don't know. Yeah.
What brake pads are not cheap, is what they are.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
so you got to keep that in mind. So you've got to understand as you kind of go into this phase of your life, that understanding how to budget, creating and understanding what are all the parts of a budget. Bring your parents into the discussion, because your parents have lived that life.
Mhm.
They've lived that life. They've had to pay the bills. They've had to raise you. They've had to do all the things that now you are moving into that phase of your life. Consult your parents, sit down with them, and work out what it is that it means to build a budget. And then as far as balancing your work life, it's tough, because when you're in school, and I watch it with both of my kids when they were in college, it's consuming, right? I mean, it depends on if you're a full-time student or part-time student. Studies can be consuming, especially in today's age, because it's not all about just going to, because again, back in my day when we were still chiseling things on rocks,
The dinosaurs.
with the dinosaurs, sitting around with the dinosaurs learning. The school was like in person, right? it was in person. So we sat in a classroom and you're writing notes and it's very defined. And then you go home and you study.
Yeah.
Today, so much of this studying happens online. So
Mhm.
going to class is optional, but you in your mind, you're thinking, oh, well, I can stay home and study. That's awesome. I'm going to go stay home and I'm going to study. I'm going to knock out all that work. And then all of a sudden, the latest streaming program comes up, or
Oh.
you look over and you see that pile of laundry that you
Yeah.
finally, after 3 weeks, you've decided that you want to go ahead and fold instead of working on your assignment. Or, oh, look, I need to clean the blinds. It's
Yeah.
things like that make it difficult, I think, when you're trying to balance studying, especially at home, because there's
For
so
sure.
many distractions, right, Sister
And
Joy?
I think today now, I mean, the information load that you receive in schools is, I mean, it's much greater than it was, back then
Yeah.
in the time of the dinosaurs, Brother Robert.
Why
I
is it
love
always me you look at when you talk about dinosaurs?
I
I mean,
love
that
though
was
in nursing school, my study groups. That was my so to hear you
yeah.
say that people like they take classes that breaks my heart because that was my favorite part was going to school, like trying to find my parking spot on campus and getting all my textbooks. And I loved my study. So like even now when I'm at a coffee shop and I see like a bunch of students huddled up and they're like, and I know what they're studying, I'm like, oh, they're studying nursing. I just want to go there and like give them advice or like, guys, what are you studying? Yeah, I geek out like that. But no, that was my favorite part was study groups and study sessions. Probably because I always got good
Yeah,
grades.
and it's so much of it is independent now, and I think a lot of students lose that connection, that exact connection you're talking about, where they get sort of that sense of community. But we got to move on because I want to be sure we touch on all the topics. Identity and growth, when we're talking about that, again, personal growth is more than just us sitting and trying to decide how do you transition from being a student to being a working adult. And it's really tough because then you're managing, depending on when you graduated, sort of that post graduation quarter
Yeah.
life crisis, because usually you're in like your mid 20s, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, how did that feel as far as that transition from being a student to being a working adult in your mid 20s, Sister Cherise?
Oh, I think all I ever wanted was, that was my goal. Like I've already said it, ever since I was a little girl, I just wanted to be a nurse. That's all I ever wanted. So when I got my first job, working in the family practice, the day that I went to go buy my first pair of scrubs was just like, and then
Oh,
putting it on, my stethoscope, all of it. Like that was for me. I was like, for me, it was like a big circle because I knew that in that moment I had accomplished everything that I wanted to accomplish, and I made my grandparents proud because they're the ones who put me through school, and I didn't want to the gift that they gave me, I did not want to just like tarnish it or let it go to waste, I should
mhm,
say.
mhm.
So
Right.
for me, that was a big accomplishment. And the best day of my life was the first day that I started. I remember calling my grandparents. I'm like, I'm on the way to work. And they were just so excited. So it was such a great day for me. So that was
That's
going from
awesome.
student to wearing scrubs. I
That
still
was that
remember they were
transition.
pink. They were pink.
Yeah. Oh,
My
pink. I love
scrubs,
it.
my scrubs, sadly, were not pink. We were in the standard green, because
Oh,
when I
yes.
was in college, I was too cheap, so I didn't like go out and buy my own scrubs. I
Those
always
are the
went
ones that
down
are
to.
even.
I was the guy in housekeeping trying to find out what scrubs just came out of the wash. So but I worked emergency room,
So yeah.
so Sister Joy, what about you? That transition, like, because I know for you're when we've talked about this before, you're one of the lucky ones that kind of landed a professional job,
You know,
right?
it's so funny that you said I did land this professional job. But again, if I could only talk to my younger self, I say keep the job and finish school. Because y'all, what you go to school for does not define who you are.
Mhm.
It's a tool, and and it's truly a blessing if you're able to go to school and finish school and it's paid for whatever means. It's a blessing, so you can utilize those skills that you learn in whatever degree or whatever certificate that you have, to grow a career of your choice. And it's not permanent. It's not permanent. And for me, I did not take my nice professional job seriously. So if you haven't listened in, we encourage you, listen back to some of our shows, and so that you can find out what my first job was. But what
It
happened with
wasn't baking cookies.
no, it was definitely, I probably eat all the cookies. um, but yeah, coming out of school, when I transitioned, I actually worked, I was with this mindset of, okay, maybe I am going to go into nursing. And so I found a position in the emergency room because I was like, I want to be an ER nurse. I wanted to be like a caught Robert, like,
Yeah.
and then but I ended up being on the business side of it. And one of my first patients that came in had a finger cut off. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. It's really hard. I didn't even do the clinical part of it. Right. So I'm like, yeah, let's reevaluate again. And, again, what you go to school for does not define who you are. Just use it as a tool
Yeah.
for personal growth.
I definitely I want to hop on that because as a person who's had to go through and do a lot of hiring through the years, I've hired probably over 200, 250 people in my career. And because, since the age of the dinosaurs. And I remember the first caveman that I hired, in fact, when I look at a resume and I'm looking at the education, I think the education is more, graduating with a bachelor's or graduating with a degree is more about demonstrating that you can apply yourself and you can accomplish something, right? It's
Yeah.
not that if I'm hiring you to be a business analyst, but your career path and your degree is maybe in engineering, that doesn't automatically disqualify you.
Yes.
Because but for me, it is more about the experience and how much time you've actually spent in a role that you're applying for, because
Mhm.
most employers today don't want to spend a whole lot of time training. They want people who are going to be able to come in and be productive. And to me, that value rises higher than it does necessarily that your career path or education path aligns directly with the role. So that's why I think, like you said, it doesn't necessarily have to define you, right? When we talk about relocation, because Sister Sharice, you were at home, right? I think Sister Joy, you were at home as well,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So, I think for all three of us, we were at home. I went to school in Long Beach where I lived. However, I can tell you from experience, at least from my son, RJ, he actually went to school when we moved to Florida. He stayed there in Georgia and finished college there in Georgia. And then he moved down here and then did an internship up in Jacksonville. So he has spent time having to move around, learning to be independent. And I think it's in some ways it helps because there's a certain degree of experience that you get when you're having to live out on your own and you're having to move and you're learning to pack and keep only what's important because you know that you're going to have to move back home, or like what he did, he moved back home. And it's, I think, a great experience for students, if you can, to be able to do that, because it does teach you life lessons about budgeting. It does teach you about, because at that point you can't just go to mom and dad's bedroom and say, hey, can I have $20 for gas? Although in today's world, it's can you digitally send me some money, right?
Yes, I know.
Can you Zelle or Venmo or whatever, me some cash? That's crazy. I remember when I used to have to go in there and open my mom's wallet to see if she had any spare change.
Yes.
The quarters.
Sorry,
Just
Mom,
get
if
some
you're
quarters,
watching.
Mom?
That's but and then as far as navigating relationship changes, that's just changing from having your school friends to now moving into the work world. But for us in the church, we talked about this before the show, right? It's one of the big advantages is that same community of officers and church members, wherever it is you happen to be, it's like every time you move to a new city, It's
Yes.
finding a new family,
And
right?
that's the word. It's a family. It's not just a community. It's a family, and it's a family that shares the same values that
Mhm.
anchor us. And so when you're going, especially with those relocating, moving, there's a lot we talked about. All the information overload. Having that family, that anchor that helps you keep your values aligned. Like okay, I need to recalibrate here. This move is getting to me. It's a beautiful thing. So
To be able to
definitely,
do that.
yeah.
And so I know that we're getting close to the top of the hour, and we've already touched actually on this topic, which was career changes, flexibility, and long-term goals, right? So fortunately, we're mind readers and we jumped ahead to this slide. But again, we don't allow that your education is the sole thing that defines what your future is. You've got to be flexible, right?
Mhm.
But what I did want to get to for our panelists, Sister Charisse, what advice would you give your younger self? And I'm picking on you because I know you struggled with this. So
I did. And so the past 30 minutes in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what can I say? Um, what advice would I give my younger self? I feel like I said, ever since I was young, I've always wanted to be a nurse, and I just came up with this about a minute ago before you asked me what my advice would be. And so I've always wanted to be a nurse, and that is a beautiful thing. I knew from the get go that's what I wanted, and that's where I am today. But as everyone knows, in nursing, there is so many different positions and roles that you can take
Mhm.
on as a nurse, and you can just keep growing. For me, what I did, and don't regret it. I chose family over pursuing promotions and bigger roles, management jobs, VP job. I chose family because my kids are young and I wanted to be there from the beginning. So in my mindset, I'm always thinking when they're older, when they don't need me as much, I can go ahead and pursue something like that. But there are other opportunities that I hear now, and I think to myself, I wish I would have known that that was a position that I would have loved to do it. I think there's a position, and now what I'm doing is I'm telling my son he wants to go into nursing. So the more I research and the more I find out about different roles, I'm letting him know, that way he can open his mind. It's just not a one track, a hospital
Mhm.
nurse.
yep.
Exactly.
There's a big beauty, like it's just so much you can do. And
Mhm.
so I'm teaching him. And the thing is, too, back in my day, we didn't have YouTube or TikTok or any of those things to show us the different roles of nurses that you can take. And so that is a tool that I've used to show him, like, look, look at this YouTube video I just found. This is what they do. This is what they, what they have to accomplish. And so that is something that I'm doing is I would have had someone tell me, don't just let it just be so, one thing forward. There's so many other things that you could do. And yeah,
Mhm.
that would be my
Oh,
advice.
great advice. All right, your younger self will benefit from that for sure. What about you, Sister Joy?
Again, I think we've touched on this. What you go to school for doesn't define you. Just use it as a tool. Finish, complete. Just go through it, complete it. It doesn't define you. Use the skills, whatever it is. I mean, whatever it is, just finish through it, get through it, and you can always change later. Just
Yep.
get into the door. That's what I would tell.
Exactly. But eventually graduate.
Yes, just do it.
Thank you. And before we wrap up, mine, I think my advice to my younger self would be just don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
It's, when you're in school,
Mhm.
it's supposed to be a period of your life that you actually enjoy.
Yeah.
And when you're in school, one of the things that I think so many people stress about is getting like a 4.0, being
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah.
100%, right?
Mhm.
And I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, and parents, please cover your ears and don't send me don't send me bad messages. But if you get a B instead of a perfect 4.0,
Uh,
your graduation diploma doesn't say that Robert graduated with only a B,
yes,
or that
yes,
he, it's
please.
your transcripts are sometimes things that someone might look for, but graduating is just one of the most important things. And don't kill yourself, especially
Yeah,
if you have to sacrifice other things like your
yeah,
family life, your church responsibilities. Those
mhm,
are all things that we have to focus on and
mhm,
stay on top of. And and I think if we're able to do that, that
mhm.
whole career of going through school as a student and then transitioning will be so much easier for you,
Yes.
because you won't sit there resenting the time that you spent because you were so focused on getting a 4.0.
Yeah.
So,
There you go.
but that's not to say don't do your best. That's the disclaimer, moms
Exactly.
and
That's not
dads.
an
Okay,
excuse.
Robert
Yeah.
did not say don't do your best. So, all right.
Always do
Well,
your best.
this was a great conversation. We had so much fun talking
So
about this today because we've all gone through it. We're going to probably carry this conversation on, but we've already gone over, and our friends over at INC Radio South Central States are coming up next. So please stay tuned. They've always got some of the best topics. So please stay around for that. And we will see you again next week here on INC Radio Florida. This is Brother Robert Topalis in Tampa for Sister Joy in Orlando and Sister Charisse there in Pensacola. Have a wonderful Saturday.
This is INC Radio, DCEM 954, the voice of truth, the official radio station of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo.